welcome back to Rust Order Garage. We're in the middle of a heat wave. I got out of work, it was like 32 degrees. I was like, wow, that's pretty good. It's almost like time to go swimming. So let's get started on another video. We did the radio in the last video. The dash is finished. It is assembled and all the wiring is done. So after all this time, probably would have only been, you know, it's not a couple weeks, but, you know, 3 or 4 days worth of work, stretched out probably a month because of the weather. But let me show you what it looks like. All right, here we go. We'll start with the driver's side. Turn the key on. We don't need that first, but look, the dome light and the courtesy lights are all functional off the switches. We've got, I'll turn the key on. We've got our brake light switch here. So if the emergency brake is on or proportioning valve underneath senses a pressure differential, factory brake light will come on. That's rewired to work with that because it was wired backwards from the factory the way we're doing it. Here's the cluster all lit up. If you didn't hear the sound when the key turned on, there's the radio. There it's attached to the phone. And what's pretty funny is what I did was I put 2 speakers under the dash in the factory single speaker bracket, and they're not really mounted up flush against the metal of the dash. They're kind of on some standoffs. It's pretty funny. If you know how an old AM radio sounds, that's how this sounds, even with music. It's pretty hysterical. It really has the qualities of a 1960s AM radio. And one other thing I didn't even show here, I had this on the wrong color. These things change color. The only thing is the speedometer doesn't. So it's like I could set all these to whatever color I want, but the speedometer would stay the same. But you know, that's probably the closest I have, is that like light blue is probably the closest to the speedometer. But it's pretty neat how you can change the colors on those things. But that's that. So the radio is on. So of course we'll go into the YouTube, not YouTube, well, yeah, the YouTube friendly music. Hold on. And we will test it. And I'm not going to play it loud, but, you know, maybe you can get that old AM radio quality. It probably sounds like that way anyway, just because it's in through this microphone. But I will say that little unit, I barely have it turned on. It's got plenty of volume for a car. And I don't know, do I even have it up all the way? I didn't even have it up all the way on the phone. But it's going to work. Oh, I turned it off. We could do this. Will it catch what it is? Let me see if I get a copyright strike. Not a ton of bass, but it works. See if that's too much music and they catch it. All right, what's next? All right, we'll leave that. I usually just leave the radio always on. It just works out better. The ashtrays are all functional now. Wipers I can show you with it running. Keys on. We got our fan, low speed, high speed. We already know the lights work. And the light in the radio lights up with the lights. I'll have to move the camera over and you can see that. What else we got here? We got the factory lighter in the dash. Give that a second there and see if it pops. Will it work? How long does it take to heat up? I need some Jeopardy music. Oh, there it goes. Look at that. Factory lighter. So that works. What's left? Oh, we even got the glove box light working. Go in the glove box. Look at that. See the light up there? And we got our factory Rambler owner's manual in the glove box. Pretty cool. So with all that done, and I just pulled the fuse out so my dome lights don't come on all the time, and the vents work on both sides, and kind of neat stuff. The last thing to do here is the turn signals and the horn button. So this is the wiring off of the 95 Camaro. So I'm going to cut this connector off because obviously that's not going to fit the Rambler steering column. And I've got this guy here that I cut out of one of the Jaguar donor cars, and I'm going to solder in wires from one side to the under dash harness and the other side to the column, and that'll be my new connection point. So before I can put this in, we got to put the steering column back in. That should be pretty painless, I hope. I just got to make a brace for it at the bottom of the firewall because we never did that. But it should bolt up here the same as factory. And then we'll take care of this wiring here. And this little drop here, the reason this doesn't have anything on it is this is for the tack. So I assume I'm going to run a clamp-on tachometer on the steering column, and the wires will run down and we'll tie into here. And I'm not going to solder a connector on this because I don't know if this tack will be in here long term. You know, I'm going to throw a used one in here that I don't know if it works or not, so we'll have to test it. But yeah, so getting closer to being a car again. If you haven't seen the beginnings of this car, it is pretty amazing what we've ended up with here, because I said when we started you could look right through the floor and see the wheels. And yeah, it's come quite a ways. And if it wasn't for the weather, it'd be done by now. But whatever. Let's get the steering column installed and come back to the wiring on it. And just like that, we've got a steering column. It is some days later, but it actually hit 30 degrees today. So it got what I consider warm, so I came out. So steering column is in. It is all wired into the Camaro wiring, so everything is functional. I will show you that. I took the factory firewall seal that was already on the column and just modified it a little bit, and that's bolted up to the firewall. Connection is made at the box. Again, this was just to reinstall it. We went through the whole steering column setup and stuff when we did the fabrication on the car. I cleaned up the horn ring a little bit, but it's kind of cold out and it's going to need some more cleaning up. I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't remember to paint the steering column when I painted the dash, but that was quite a thrash. So we may come back and do that. But let me show you the finished gauges, and everything works. All right, so here we go. I know the horn works because I keep banging into the horn ring. So we have a horn. Turn the key on. Oh, I forgot to mention. Notice the zoomy tack on top. I was going to dig an old one out and put it in, and I found these, what is it, $30, I think? Chrome tack. I'll get a better shot of it, but it looks kind of like, what do I say, like the old Stuart Warner tacks. So it's pretty cool. It matches the style of the car. It has a shift light, which is, you know, ambitiously set to 5,500 right now, which is probably okay for the stock engine, but who knows how far we push it. But yeah, and I pulled the fuse out for the dome lights and put them back in because I have the doors open all the time, and every time I do that I lose the color on this gauge. Once we're done with the car and that fuse stays in permanently, it won't lose the color. The other thing is the tack has color as well, but it only comes on when you have the headlights on. I could wire that up to key on power. I wonder if I should do that, so then it's on all the time with the other ones. That might be pretty cool to do. I'll have to think about that. But anyway, the gauges are done, and as far as I know they work. The oil pressure gauge works, so we'll show you that. And one thing about gauges, and you think I would have learned this already by now. you get what you pay for in gauges. You really do. I've done this before, not with these particular gauges, but $20 gauges generally are not going to be as good as name brand gauges. These gauges, I can tell already, have stepper motors in them, and they may not be the smoothest. So, like, we'll turn this on and start it up. Oh, I keep forgetting. I got push start. I will say the oil pressure gauge has smoothed out a little bit. When I first started the car with that gauge, it was kind of choppy, but it seems to have leveled out. Let's see how it's very notchy, I guess I should say, as it moves. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let's see. I'm just going to put the thing here, and if you see it, you see it. You see how it's kind of notchy? I don't want to run it too long because there is no coolant in the car, in the engine. That's something else we got to talk about. But the sending units are obviously installed, and my Zoomy tack there, why is it on 8,000? Hope that thing works. Look at it, it's flipping out. Okay, it seems to be working all right. Really, if you can afford it, buy name brand gauges. It's really worth it. I think this is the last time I'm going to play with cheap aftermarket gauges. There are deals out there, but this is one thing where either modify factory OEM gauges, because they always work, or name brand gauges are going to be the way to go. We'll see how these go once the car's on the road. And the next big item, or I should say item, to talk about is the big one, the engine. Still unknown. I removed the driver's side valve cover to check the rocker arms on that side, hoping to find a loose rocker, because if you remember when I first went over this engine, it was obvious that the driver's side cylinder had been removed at some point, probably to do a head gasket, but I didn't see signs of that on the passenger side, so I thought, okay, maybe they just did a bad adjustment on the valves. If anything, they were a little tighter than I go. I usually go 1/2 to 3/4 turns past zero lash. These were more like over 1, but I think you can go with a factory lifter, probably up to 1.5, and it's still okay. I don't think anything was, maybe if it was holding a valve open, it would have been bouncing the valve a little bit, but I don't know if that's the sound it would have made. So the engine is still unknown. I haven't run it and warmed it up yet to see if the noise is still there. Now that the correct temperature sending unit is in the head for the gauge, I just started filling up the system with coolant again, and I am going to run the engine up to temp. Hopefully the gauge works. I'll just feel the hoses to get an idea and keep topping it off, and we're going to see if the noise is still there. All right, I've run it up to temp. Noise is still there, as expected, because I really didn't find anything. I didn't fix anything. And, yeah, get it at the right RPM. There you go. That's a mechanical noise. But it just sounds too light to be a rod knock. Oil pressure at I can't speak right now. Oil pressure at hot idle is about 25 right now, which is fine for an LT1. Yeah. So the plan now that we have a working radio, turn the radio up. Yep. So it is what it is. The right thing to do would be to pull the intake manifold and all that stuff, but you know what? We're going to do that in the future because I have an idea. All right, so here's the plan. This car is going to be finished within the next few weeks. It should have been done already, but weather and spare time has really impacted things. As I've already said, the next two builds, the truck that's next, I want done by Memorial Day parade if possible. And then if not, if that really gets messed up because of this weather, okay, done by 4th of July parade. But then after that, that would make things really ridiculously tight because in August is the Rat's Nest Run-In Car Show, and I am going to build the Corvair burnout van for that charity event. I have to get that done. I'd really be disappointed if something happens to make me not make that show. And this weather, I mean, there's still over a foot of snow outside. I can't even get this car out of here if I wanted to. So it's really impacted things. But anyway, here's the plan. Stop ranting. So this engine, it may be toast. I don't know what's wrong with it. Honestly, I'm really not concerned. If there is a real problem with this engine and it has to come out, I have options. And this is what I think will be the option if this engine is bad. One of my 1951 Ford F1s that I built years ago that I drive whenever I can. It's an awesome truck that has an LT1 6-speed setup in it. I think what I'll do is, if this is bad, this is going to be my last LT1 car. I've been moving away from LT1s to the LS1 platform. I was behind, I guess you say, the curve in that. I did LT1s probably longer than anybody normally would. But now that I have been switching over to the LS platform, it's time to officially cut the cord. I have multiple cars here with LT1s in them. But what I'll do is I always get off on these tangents. If this engine's no good, we're going to take the LT1 6-speed out of my 51 Ford F1. We're going to LS swap the 51 F1. Again, I don't know if I'll put an automatic in it or leave it a 6-speed, but we'll put an LS in the F1, and that LT1 6-speed setup, which is a known good package, will go in here. Because I'd like to keep this car with an LT1 in it, only because I built the whole car around this engine. Everything fits really nice, and it looks factory, and I just would like to keep that. So, but even if this engine has a problem, we're gonna run it anyway. We're gonna drive it on the street, test the car out, have some fun with as much as we can before I scatter it. If it scatters, it could make this noise and go 10,000 miles. I don't know. But we're gonna risk it. I don't care. We're gonna finish this car. So over the next few weeks, we'll do the final videos on it. I have some pretty cool things to still do with it that'll make for, I think, some fun videos. So we'll end this one here. I know this was more of an update type video just because that's just how it worked out, is what it is. I've got to do some more work on here that's really not interesting to video. I'm going to bleed the brakes on this, or at least attempt to. My concern is the proportioning valve on this. This chassis, of course, was from a donor vehicle, and I think there was fluid in this system. Sometimes these G-body proportioning valves can get stuck and be a nightmare, and I hope that's not the case because, of course, I made all new brake lines to line up with it perfectly. So I'm hoping the brakes bleed out okay, and then we will get into the final steps on this car, and yeah, then we'll come back. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks for following this build. There's a whole bunch more coming up. Lots of interesting things, including I am going to do some more carbureted LS stuff. That'll be coming up. And, of course, the other builds are coming up. So that's that. And maybe when it gets warm, get the Turbo Buick back out and have some fun with it. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for following. And thanks for subscribing. See you next one. Later.